So Season 1 of Star Wars Hunters is essentially at an end now. We're not too far away from the beginning of Season 2, and with this being the first full season of the global launch of the game, giving us a decent idea of what we can expect moving forward, I wanted to review Season 1 as a whole and talk about both the good, the bad, and also the ugly. Now keep in mind, I'm recording this a few days in advance, and there is every chance that by the time this has gone up, they've actually given us some news on Season 2. So throughout the video, if I'm talking about things they can do better in Season 2, and they've maybe already confirmed that's going to be happening, then that's the reason why. It's always my luck with videos like this, where I'm talking about something in the future, I'll schedule it to upload in a couple of days, and every time I do that, the news for, the following season comes out. So keep that in mind. But with that being said, let's get stuck into essentially what I thought about Season 1. Now, I'm going to start off with the content side of things, and I have to say, I am actually a little bit disappointed with the amount of content we got in Season 1. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually think the Arena Pass was really solid. It had a lot of really good skins and stuff in there. I think Arantal is a really great addition to the game as well. And I also have to keep in mind that the majority of players, the entire game is new, so all the maps and all the hunters and stuff are new, and therefore I think it's okay for there to be a bit of a lack of new content, because technically speaking, the entire game is new to so many people, and therefore it's not like we need 3 new maps in the first season, because like I said, all of the current maps are quote unquote new for a lot of people. So I'm kind of willing to give them a bit of a pass there when it comes to Season 1. But that being said, I'm kind of basing what's going to happen in Season 2 and beyond on what we got in Season 1, and we got no new maps and essentially no new game modes. All we really got was the Arena Pass that came with a new hunter, and that is essentially the only content that we got. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about skins and stuff later on too. Obviously skins are also content, but they are paid content, so it's a little bit different, and therefore, in my opinion, realistically, we didn't actually get that much content throughout Season 1, which, like I said, has left me just a little bit disappointed, as that is now kind of the standard that they're setting moving forward into Season 2. Now, technically speaking, we did kind of get a new game mode in the fact that Huttball and Boulder Bash, for example, were limited time modes for a few periods there. Huttball, unfortunately, was only there once throughout the season, but there was Boulder Bash, and there was also the matchup mix-up and stuff like that. So those are technically new modes, but limited time modes aren't quite what I'm talking about when I'm talking about new modes. In my opinion, Huttball and also Escort, which we still haven't seen in the global launch, that was actually a big part of the soft launch, and both of those, in my opinion, should be essentially standard game modes that you can play at any time. They are definitely not worthy of being limited time modes, because in my opinion, they are essentially the 2 best modes in the entire game. Huttball is so much fun. It is just perfectly suited for this game, and Escort is once again perfectly suited for Star Wars Hunters. The games last a little bit longer, the maps for that mode are so damn good, and so like I said, I don't consider Huttball being a limited time mode for like 3 days as a new mode coming to the game, because in my opinion that should be there permanently rather than for essentially 3 days. That's one thing that during Season 2 I really hope they improve on, and like I said, I'm going to give them a bit of a pass for Season 1 just because they don't need to add a bunch of new stuff when the game is just launched. But like I said, during Season 2 I expect to see hopefully 2 new maps added to the game. I would like to see Huttball or Escort permanently added to the game, as well as still having limited time modes like Boulder Bash and plenty more modes like that. Boulder Bash is one example of a million different modes they could do. They could essentially do that type of mode for literally every hunter in the game. They could also even just do like support only, or having a limited time mode where you can pick multiple of the same hunter, stuff like that. So there's just so many limited time modes they can do. Whereas, like I said, I just think Huttball and Escort definitely need to be added to the proper rotation, because those games are so damn good. Now, moving on to the balancing of the game, I'd have to say that overall, I actually think the balancing is not that bad, but there are definitely just a few areas in which the balancing of the game is borderline atrocious, in my opinion. It's like 90% really well balanced, and then that final 10% is a little bit all over the place, and that's more to do with team composition rather than anything. But I also think individually, when it comes to like Scorer and Sentinel, for example, there are definitely a few hunters that need a little bit of a tweak. Not a crazy tweak. I don't think Scorer needs to be like nerfed into the ground, for example, but I think there are a few hunters that definitely need to be brought down just a little bit, and potentially even a few hunters that need to be raised up a little bit as well. My main issue, which I'll get to a little bit more when I get to ranked, but my main issue is essentially to do with the team composition. The fact that you can pick as many tank hunters as you want, that has become a bit of an issue when it comes to ranked, and I do think that they need to just balance that out a little bit. There should need to be like a minimum of like 1 of each type of hunter in any given team, so 1 support, 1 damage, and 1 tank, and then from there, maybe the final hunter can just be whoever you want. But yeah, there are definitely a few areas where I just think the game needs a little bit of balancing. But like I said, overall, I actually think it is pretty damn good. I genuinely think every single hunter in the game is viable. I often make jokes about like Sprocket is useless and stuff like that. I don't actually think that. I actually said prior to the launch of the game, even the bad hunters, like at the time when I said Sprocket, I think Sprocket can actually do really well. There are definitely hunters who are the better hunters in the game, but overall I actually think every single hunter is pretty damn viable. So the overall balancing, in my opinion, is pretty solid. There's just a few final little tweaks they need to make, which I'm really hoping to see once we get into season 2. Now, touching in on ranked, like I said, my main issue, well, actually, I've got a few issues. One of them is to do with the matchmaking, but my main issue is to do with, like I said, having like limits to which hunters you can choose in ranked. It seems like towards the end of the season, it has become abundantly clear that a team of either Zaina or Scorer, even Sprocket realistically, just a support hunter, paired with Slingshot, Sentinel, and Char, that team is borderline unbeatable unless the other team is also using the same team, or if that team is just simply not working together or anything, they're just all doing their own thing. But if you have even a remotely competent team who just literally know the rules of the game, if they just are playing dynamic control and they're just even remotely trying to play the objective, that team is borderline unbeatable. And that is sort of alluding to what I said earlier. I think when you have no limits on the type of hunters that you can choose, as in the class of hunter, I think that is a real issue. I think that there needs to be some sort of limit on that, because there has definitely become like a meta team composition, pretty much the composition that is mentioned, or even replacing one of those tank hunters with someone like Reeve, for example. It is just borderline unbeatable unless you're running essentially the exact same team. So that is probably my main issue when it comes to ranked. But then on top of that, like I said, the matchmaking is absolutely abysmal, and this could easily sound salty, so I want to clarify without it sounding like a flex, because I've said multiple times throughout the season that I don't think it is a flex. I don't think ranked is very hard at all in this game, but I did manage to solo queue all the way to Kyber 1, so me complaining about matchmaking is not, you know, salty like, oh, it's too hard. It's literally not even hard, but I still think the matchmaking is so atrocious that it really does need some work. Now, there's a few areas that I'm kind of talking about. One is the fact that there was often times when it would be like me in, for example, say Kyber 2 when I'm trying to get to Kyber 1. So I'd be in Kyber 2 and I'd have literally 3 bronze teammates against a full stack of Kyber 1 enemies. That is just the most unbalanced thing, and that is not how it should work. You should have to be within a certain amount of ranks of each other. So for example, if you're in Kyber 1, you shouldn't be able to match with anyone who's below maybe like Beskar 3 or something like that, because a Kyber 1 player playing against a Bronze 3 player, that is literally just unfair. That's not how ranked is meant to work. And although it didn't really happen to me that often, it does happen to a lot of people. I've seen a lot of like screenshots and stuff of people just being matched with 3 bronze teammates. They're on the cusp of getting to Kyber 1 and they're matched against 4 Kyber 1 enemies with 3 bronze teammates on their own team. That is essentially a guaranteed loss. There is no chance that bronze team is beating the Kyber team, and that is just not how ranked works in literally any other game, and it's not how it should work in this game either. The other thing with the matchmaking that I think should be changed, and I'm going to talk about this in a full video, but there should be some sort of actual solo queue system, even though, like I said, I managed to solo queue to Kyber 1 and it wasn't actually that bad. But I do think to make it a lot easier for a lot of people, there should be the option to actually solo queue so that you cannot run up against teams who are 4 stacking. Now, I actually have no issue with that. I have no problem with people 4 stacking. That's how the game is kind of meant to be played. So please don't take that as me saying like, oh, it's unfair if you're 4 stack. It's literally not unfair because everyone can do it, but not everyone wants to play with teammates. Some people just want to play solo, and I think, you know, they've done it in plenty of other games out there where there are either solo queues or they just do put a limit on how many people you can have on a team. And so yeah, something a little bit more balanced in that sense, where it's just either impossible or at least a lot harder to match up against 4 stacks if you're playing solo. I think that would definitely help a lot when it comes to ranked. Now, moving on to, like I said earlier, with the skins and stuff like that, mostly just talking about the store. Even though I actually think a lot of the skins were really solid, I'm actually a really big fan of the customization in this game. I can't give them too much credit there because, one, I think the pricing is pretty damn high for a lot of these skins. Some of the skins cost like over $20, and yes, they're in a bundle, but it's like a skin and then you know, 2 stickers. Like, no one's buying the bundle for the stickers, let's be honest. So they try and make it look a little bit better where it's like 4 items for 20 bucks, but realistically it's 20 bucks for the skin. I don't believe a single human being has ever bought a $20 bundle so they can get a sticker. That's just not how it works. So I think the pricing is definitely just a little bit high in my opinion. The content itself, the actual skins and stuff, they're really good. I'm a big fan of so many of those skins, so they don't need to change anything on that front, but I just think the pricing is a little bit too high to where I think a lot of people are probably deterred from spending any money on the game, and realistically if they lowered the price just a little bit, they'd probably actually make more money. There's a lot of times when I am eyeing off a skin that I'm like, oh, I really want to get that, and it is, you know, over $20. If it was, you know, $12 to $15, I'd probably consider it, but if it's 20 bucks each time, then I think a lot of people are deterred by that. And considering, like I said, the skins are realistically the main content we get in this game. We haven't gotten any maps, we haven't gotten any new game modes, and we've gotten 1 new hunter. With the skins being the main piece of content, having them as essentially a rip-off, I don't think that's fair for pretty much anyone in the player base. So that's something I would definitely like to see change. Like I said, the actual content itself, really, really good. I'm a big fan of so many skins. I did buy a few skins myself, and a lot of the skins in the battle pass and stuff were absolutely awesome. So no complaints on that side of it, but yeah, I think the pricing is just a little bit too high, and I've seen a lot of people saying the exact same thing. On top of that too, I do think they need to add just a little bit more stuff that's available for credits. Now, I understand that they can't just have like half the store available for credits, because at that point they're just burning money. They're not going to be able to make money if all the good content is available for free. So I'm not saying it needs to be like, you know, half of the store that's available for credits, but just a few more. Oftentimes you'll check the store and there's literally like 2 things in there that are available for credits, and half the time they're not worth buying. So that's something I'd like to see change just a little bit as well, or at least just more rotation, because oftentimes it'll be like 2 weeks before they change what those items are that are available for credits. Now, the last thing I've got to talk about is to do with the communication for the game, as well as just like overall updates in terms of the actual updates and stuff like that. And in my opinion, this is one of the biggest letdowns so far for Star Wars Hunters. The communication, or the lack thereof, is really disappointing to see. This is such a community-driven game, and yet we've essentially heard pretty much nothing from the community team. From what I've heard, they don't even have a freaking community manager, which is just absolutely terrible for a multiplayer shooter. I've actually never heard of that. I've never heard of a game not having a community manager. Even single player games have community managers. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I've not seen anyone, you know, tweeting, and obviously there's someone involved with like tweeting on the Twitter account and stuff like that, but I'm talking someone in the community who is actually actively interacting with the community. And yeah, from what I've heard, they literally just don't have someone in that role. So that is definitely not good enough. And to be honest, even if they do have someone in that role, that's actually more embarrassing, because the communication has been non-existent. I literally have not seen anyone talking about the game from official channels. The only tweets they ever put out are obviously like pre-scheduled stuff where it's just showing off like a hunter's abilities and stuff like that. You see that kind of thing on their Twitter, and that's not communication. That is literally them. That's essentially marketing. It's just posting stuff about your game. I'm talking about the stuff of like tweeting when patch notes go live and all that kind of thing. There has essentially been none of that whatsoever, and that kind of leads me on to my next point. There has not been a patch in this season, so if we're going to have to wait 2 months every single time to get a patch, there will obviously be a new update when each new season rolls around, and that will probably have like the balancing changes and stuff like that. But if we then just have to wait another 2 months until the next update, that is not good enough. The game will not survive long term if that's how it's going to be. A multiplayer shooter getting 6 updates a year, it will be dead within 12 to 24 months at the absolute latest. So that's something I really think they need to change as well. Not only putting out more updates and stuff, but just the overall communication. Like I said, they've not said anything. There was one blog post that went out throughout the middle of, or it was actually probably about 2 weeks after the season started, where they sort of said there is going to be some news coming soon, and then it was like 6 weeks between then and hearing anything at all. So that is definitely not good enough, and if that doesn't change moving forward, I think that will really negatively impact the game. Now, overall, despite pretty much everything that I just talked about being more on the negative side, I actually still think the season was pretty decent. I don't actually have that much of an issue with how that season went, because like I said, it's the first season. It's very rare that games launch and just have a crazy first season. So I'm actually not being like negative about the season overall. All the stuff I was talking about that sounds negative is mostly just a bit of criticism that I think they can improve moving forward, yet overall, I actually still love the season. I played so many damn hours during the season. Like I said, I got to Kaiba 1. I finished the Battle Pass. It did enough to keep me hooked throughout the season. And so I still think the season overall was fine. I just think there is a lot of improvement they're going to have to make if they want people to stick around forever, because I do know that in, season 3 and 4, for example, if those seasons are pretty much the same as this season, I will probably start to be getting bored by that point. If we literally just get a hunter and an arena pass at the start of each season and that's it, and we just wait 2 months until the next time, then yeah, I know for a fact I'll eventually get bored, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people will too. So that is my overall review for season 1 of Star Wars Hunters. I'm very interested to see how season 2 goes, because like I said, I think they kind of get a bit of a pass for season 1 just because, like I said, it's the launch season. I'm not expecting just 5 new freaking maps and a bunch of game modes and like 3 new hunters. That's never going to happen, and that will probably never happen in any season moving forward. But I think season 2 and 3 will probably set the tone for what we can expect for realistically the foreseeable future for the game. And so there is actually quite a bit riding on season 2 and 3 in my opinion, and I am very interested to see how it goes. But I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts as well, so be sure to leave them down in the comment section. Feel free to leave a rating for the season. I would probably give season 1 about a 7 out of 10, and so I'm keen to hear all of your ratings as well. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the force be with you always.